Hi, I'm Silas Allen with NewsOK. I recently interviewed Elaine Kofa, an Oklahoman who works in Afghanistan. Elaine recently assisted an Afghan native following an attack. Well, can you tell me about the situation with the woman that you worked with? First of all, how did you become aware of the situation?
She was hired as a financial assistant, and I directly worked with that initiative of the Public Works. So that's how I got to know her and know her work and her colleagues. As was mentioned, March 28th of this year, one morning as she walked towards to get her car for work, she and her sister, they were attacked. And so that's how I got into the fold. Incidentally, the morning of the attack, I already had a meeting planned with her boss, the director of the APRP cell. And he actually came over to ISAF headquarters to meet with me. And at the conclusion of the meeting, I just asked how everybody in the office was doing, and he said, oh, by the way, this morning we had an incident, and Mushkin was attacked, and she's not looking well, and she's in the hospital. So that's how I got involved.
Okay. Are these situations that you get involved with typically, or was this atypical?
No, it was atypical. I mean, I don't directly work in any issue of crime or anything like that. So, of course, I know and I am aware of it. And unfortunately, her situation is not exceptional. But in terms of me having a direct involvement and knowing somebody who was directly impacted, it was exceptional and out of the norm for me.
What made you want to get involved?
I couldn't just, it's easy for me anyway to open up the newspapers or online or what have you and read about what's going on here and the blurbs that we get. But knowing somebody that I actually met and worked with and what have you, this was an opportunity. Her situation, as I said, unfortunately is not exceptional, but this was our chance as ISAF Frick to be exceptional and to do something.
Okay. Can you kind of walk me through what exactly you did?
As I said, at the conclusion of the meeting on the 28th with the director, he informed me of Mushkin's situation, and I asked him to keep me abreast. And I think the 28th of March, I want to say was middle of the week, Wednesday or Thursday, and I know that following Friday I had a business trip planned to go to another part of Afghanistan with my boss, a general. And it was a lot. It was going to be a very intense weekend trip. But I was keeping abreast of her situation, and I was told she wasn't doing well at the local hospital and they may lose her. I then reached out. I had kept my boss in touch with everything. I kept him abreast of what was going on. I got permission to get her transferred to the local military hospital here, which is Kaya. It's a French-run hospital. And Friday night, whatever day that was, so I'm assuming it was about the 30th or the 31st, I actually, with my car, I travel in an armored vehicle with armed guards, went and met with her drivers, and they don't have ambulance like we have back in the States. It was a rundown van. They had her laying on a decrepit stretcher, and I accompanied the vehicle about 10, 11 o'clock at night that Friday night to the hospital. And, because I needed, as an ISAF employee, to be able to, for lack of a better term, give entry for an Afghan, a local national, to get entry into the hospital. And that's how I got involved. I stayed with her from the standpoint of them taking the bandages off. I saw the first one, at least the first wound that they uncovered. She insisted because she was uncomfortable being in a facility with strange men, and they would obviously see her nude, and so I had to sway her to let these men provide care to her. And incidentally, I was hurt earlier in the year in February, and one of the doctors who was trying to provide aid to her had provided aid to me. In addition to that, that helped sway her. Anyway, the first wound that they uncovered was on her thigh. And let me be clear, I have no medical background. So they uncovered the bandage, and all the local hospital had done was stuff gauze to get the bleeding to stop. That wound on her top thigh, when we took the gauze out, or tried to, it was the length of a belt. That's how deep the wound was. And I stayed, and most of the wounds she suffered was to her back, and one of them touched her spine. She's at the point trying to regain ability to walk on her own again. So we did that, and I went on the next day to my business trip and was in touch with the hospital. I speak some French, and most of the doctors there are French, and then I also we have a translator dedicated to each of our segments, and I am actually the supervisor for my segment. And so I had him keep in touch with the family because her family do not speak English. And just kept in touch while I was on my business trip, came back and heard the operation was successful, and just continued to be engaged from that point on. The main goal here was, one, I knew obviously Mushkin was no longer a source of income for the family, and the father as well, in addition to whatever ongoing medical needs, crutches or wheelchair, whatever we could provide to help them as best as we could. So it didn't take a lot of thought to say, okay, let's see if we can raise any funds to assist this family.
Okay. And how is she doing today?
She's doing better than expected. We had a ceremony last Wednesday to present her with the funds we had raised, and those who, I'm speaking of her colleagues who had gone to see her, were, to paraphrase their comments, they were shocked and pleasantly so to see her in the condition that she's in. They didn't expect her to be walking. And let me be clear, she's not walking on her own. She has to walk with assistance and either somebody holding her up or a cane, but she was able to take steps by herself. She's, I think emotionally, the trauma is still there, but I think, and as she mentioned also, the support that she's been given from the international community has helped her more than any medicine or anything else. She sees that Americans are partners, and we're sincere and we're empathetic and we're here to help. And that's a message that's carried through to her family as well.